Hello, my name is Jordan Walters. My company is Walters Auto. As you can see, my story starts off when I'm little. Here I am. I have been a hunter and a competitive shooter my entire life. So as my grandpa and a long lineage in front of me, hunting has always been a pastime of us. We've been raised in rural Nebraska and moved to rural Iowa, rural central Iowa. So shooting is a part of my life. Unfortunately, what follows shooting is always hearing damage. Shotguns, of course, are loud. The average is 160 decibels, and CDC says anything above 140 decibels causes immediate hearing damage. So when you go out and talk to hunters, usually you have to raise your voice and they ask you what many times. I've seen through my customer discovery, that's the main thing. And unfortunately, 75% of hunters never wear hearing protection. When I ask them why, they always say you hear it before you see it. You're going to hear the duck flying above you way before you're ever going to see it. So hearing plugs get rid of your situational awareness. It's also a mild safety concern as you can't hear your buddies around you, and obviously that's a pretty big deal if you accidentally shoot them. Number three, they're just plain out uncomfortable. The hunting experience is something that they like to enjoy, and this is just, it doesn't make it unenjoyable for them, but it is, if they're uneducated, quite a barrier. And following this health concerns, hearing loss is a leading factor for dementia, and it's also closely linked with depression and a low quality of life. So what I've had is in my family is my grandma has developed Alzheimer's and dementia, and not as a main factor of shooting, but shooting has been a part of her hearing loss. So this population of hunters, which is 12 million, for reference, that's about 4 times the state of Iowa, going home to families that they can't hear or possibly even remember. This is what motivated my dad and I to start our company, Walters & Co. Even beyond the hunter, hearing damage is worse for the hunting dogs, as it's very common for them to go completely deaf by the time they're old. It scares the game away, so they're no longer an effective hunter. And finally, it's annoying for the community at 5 a.m. when you wake people up. So there has to be a better solution to this. My dad and I decided that a silencer is the best solution to this for hunters. The CDC says that it's the only effective noise control method because it decreases the noise at the barrel instead of at your ears, what hearing protection does. And by 2026, it's projected to be a $1 billion market. It's the fastest growing market under the firearms umbrella. However, the number one issue and why no one uses them is they're just impractical. Here's a picture of that one right there. For scale, it's about this big. So if you go out and walk a bunch of miles, you're never going to use that. They're too heavy, too impractical, and too long. So my dad, let me introduce you to my dad, Bob. He has designed silencers for the Marine Corps for about 10 years or so, specifically working in integrally suppressed weaponry. So we're trying to build the first practical shotgun silencer, and how do we do this? An integrally suppressed shotgun silencer. So this means that we take a shotgun barrel, which is right here, we put ports into the barrel, and then we slide a sleeve over so that this can become a practical silencer that both is not heavy, it's not long, and then finally it's quiet. Our competition, there's 2 main competitors. They're both, as you can see, quite a bit heavier, which just makes them impractical, and this one is quite a bit longer. Recently, I don't have this listed on the presentation, but we have a new competitor that has been kind of giving us a run for our money as far as how we're designing it. That's a whole nother conversation. We recruited this successful firearms inventor in Arkansas that has done a lot with a number of famous firearms throughout history, and he's helping us design this new integrally suppressed shotgun. We actually have had 2 prototypes. Unfortunately, each one has come back bad, but we've learned from them. We have pictures for a third and on the CAD, and we're hoping to get that testing as soon as possible. A lot of this experience for me has been patience. We've been doing this company now for about 10 months or so. So learning to be okay with that we're getting there and believing in the team, I think is a big part, because seeing a competitor come into the exact space is very it kind of hurts you a little bit. You say this is a market that I want to be in, this is what we're running at, and then to see someone else kind of do exactly that, you have to have the patience. And I think what I've learned is the long game of doing this for 10 years, the first 6 months won't matter. But right now, as I'm in those first 6 months, I'm trying to work as hard as possible to combat them, to get there. Overall, the market, I won't talk about this too much, but we're targeting the waterfowl market. My rationale here was because they have the biggest problem, both in frequency and intensity. They shoot the most as far as any hunting. They constantly shoot ducks through a blind on a lucky day. And they are the closest together in a blind. They're also hurting the dog's hearing. So the hearing damage is the biggest problem out of any of the hunting, and they shoot the most. So that's kind of my first adopters. And then there's also a sporting market and a defense market, which once we have a successful product, they would love to have. But I really see hunting is the first to adopt because they have no good solution to this hearing protection. While sporting, they can use hearing protection, and they don't need to hear the clay, so it's much more of a lifestyle desire compared to a real problem which the hunters have. In a total available market, there are 83 million shotguns in the country. Most of them aren't in use, but this is a huge market, and I'm glad to be in it. Demographics, I mean, mostly hunters, so white males. And this is a figure, about realistically 25% are above the $125,000. That's kind of an updated figure, but you can do the math later if you would like to learn more. As far as how we plan on selling this, hunting influencers actually have a huge grip on the hunting industry. You wouldn't necessarily think that because it's kind of old white men that aren't traditionally on YouTube in these spaces. But that's something that's kind of surprised me with the number of views, and they're not necessarily targeted, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's the marketing of other companies that feel short. Maybe it's that, I'm not sure, there's many reasons, but that's something that I plan on getting into. And I'm talking to a few influencers that have a pretty large space, and it's very validating to hear, yeah, hearing damage is something that I wish I had this product 40 years ago. And they believe in my mission to decrease hearing damage among hunters. So that's been a very cool part of this. Then, of course, partnering with online retailers. There's 2 major online retailers that move a majority of the silencers. And as far as margins go, that's going to be the best place to get started. And then eventually we'll get to your grandpa's gun store. Next steps, website coming up very soon. I don't know why that says April, my bad. Shotgun prototype number 3, as I said. Actually, tomorrow we are starting chips to prototype rifle silencer that we have a sale to a sheriff's department in Nebraska pending. So July is when they're going to order, but once again, as I said, tomorrow we start making chips. So we kind of have a tight turnaround to get a successful product. So we've had a lot of design work, and then so I'm kind of nervous the next couple of days we'll finally be testing that design work, and hopefully it comes back good. I think that's about a $50,000 sale, which would be just amazing to get some capital into us. Then finally, as you would expect, a patent coming, a beta this summer, and hoping to get full-on sales by this hunting season come fall. So once again, I'm Jordan Walters, a hunter, and then my dad is the other side of this. And I'd like to help you, I'd like to ask you to help me to help hunters shoot quiet. Thank you.
Questions?
You mentioned patents. Have you run into any issues, since there are several other companies that are in that market, have basically dealing with patents that they already have and trying to come into this market?
So we haven't run into any issues as far as our designs. We've run into issues on getting the IP of some of our designs, but it's not protected. So we can use it, but not necessarily all of our silencers, the baffles and every part of it is going to be protected. Going forward, we have a design that is unique, and we can. It has higher IP protection, but that is something to think about. Right?
Okay.
So this is integrated into the barrel. So is the idea if someone has a shotgun and they swap out barrels? So you're actually selling a barrel that has a silencer integrated?
So as of today, our plan is you send me your barrel, we put quartz in it, and then send you the barrel and the silencer together. That's something that we're testing because our major competitor is actually a traditional silencer that attaches off the end of the muzzle. And I'm doing customer discovery right now to say which one the customer prefers, because right now it's about 30-70. 70% of the more traditional hunters would prefer something that attaches, while the 30% that are professional and would be more willing to adopt prefer it to be intervally, so it would be lighter. So our prototypes have all been intervally suppressed, but if I want to achieve the mission of decreasing hearing damage among hunters in general, that's kind of something that's pushing me to think about a muzzle-mounted shotgun silencer. So still something I'm thinking about, but today it's interval.
Just curious, does it affect the performance of the gun at all? Does it change how you shoot?
No negative results. It decreases recoil slightly. Some silencers decrease recoil quite a bit for hunters. We're yet to see what ours would be like. Of course, if we come back with a bad prototype, it might, but ideally it won't and it shouldn't.
Wait, so what you guys are selling is pretty much like it's not an extension, it's like actually what you would put on the shotgun itself. So if people have to go to you and have you like measure it out and like put it on the shotgun for them, how can they like DIY it? Or like, is there a possibility for people just to do it themselves?
So there is a process called a Form 1 where you can build a silencer yourself. However, it's pretty time intensive. Obviously, they're going to have to build the design, and I don't necessarily plan on giving them specifics to DIY just from a liability perspective. And of course, from liability, but also I don't think, I just don't necessarily trust them to, it's from liability, but an umbrella view of it would be that, I'm sorry, I lost the words, but yeah, I don't think that would be.
But no, I think I misexplained it. You were saying earlier that like people have to send their shotgun
Yep.
to you to get the thing
The
in there.
boards. Yep.
So if they buy, let's say you go to like a brick and mortar store, you sell it at Dick's, well they have to buy the thing at Dick's and ship their gun off with the thing they just bought at Dick's to like thing you pretty much made to you to like put it on, or can they do it themselves?
So if they don't have to purchase online to begin with, but yes, they would have to send in the barrel to me, and then I would have to do it. One day, maybe the retailer, the gunsmith could do it, but yeah, once again, just a balancing liability.
So if you're adapting people's current issue, would you be then doing every case like every case being custom then?
No, it's still the same kind of process. It's a barrel, you put holes in the barrel and put a silencer over it. Ideally, if it would be traditional silencer, you could sell it as a product, put it in a box and ship it off. It would be a lot more convenient from us and the margins would be better. But it's just what can we get to be the better performing solution. And then, yeah.
So yeah, it sounds like, so you're not just selling a product, you're selling a little bit of a service because they have to
Yep.
sell it in the barrel. Have you looked into like setting up like a facility and, hiring people to do that work, or are you going to start out doing it yourself?
So we have a contract manufacturer that would be fine with it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, one day it would be better if we did it ourselves,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
kind of work with what we got right now.
You mentioned working with prototypes. Can you talk about what goes into making a prototype for this kind of stuff and what went wrong with them?
So my dad worked on a prototype for a long time, and his perspective was to get the biggest prototype with the most amount of baffles and get it as quiet as possible, and then we can take down the weight. And that took a total of probably 7 months, and it was ineffective because it wasn't quiet. Now our partner Doug in Arkansas that I talked about, he did the opposite solution. He made something as light as possible. And once again, it didn't take down the sound reduction any. And then the second time, the second prototype, he made something a little bit heavier. And now he's making something a little bit heavier even from there. So where they weren't necessarily failures. At least Doug started little to start to see what the minimal viable solution is, and then move from there. But just two different ways of testing it. But the second one took about 2 weeks, and the first one took about 7 months. So that shows a perspective of what has been successful for us.
I'm curious, you mentioned, let's see if I remember my numbers right. I think you said on average it down to about 160 decibels, right?
Yep.
And you're dropping it down to 130, is that what you're targeting?
Ideally, yes.
Can you give a point of reference of like how much quieter that is? Because I know at decibels, I don't think that's
Yeah.
like a linear scale, correct?
Yeah, so a siren is still 100 decibels, 120 decibels, like a fire siren, a fire truck going by. So if you can imagine 160, each time you go 4 decibels higher, it gets 2 times as loud. So because it's measured logarithmically and not linear. So you can imagine the 160 decibels, whatever, I can't do the math right now, but it's probably more than 100 times louder than what the 130 is. So it's still, it's not quiet, but as far as you're not
160
scaring the
130
geese,
is actually a big difference in reduction in volume.
absolutely.
Yeah, a curiosity about the material used for this type of silencers and the production process that you think you're gonna apply, when the quantities are high.
I didn't hear the end, sorry.
The production process, if it's
Yep.
something which is made on
Right now, CNC.
CNC.
We looked into direct metal lasers, so 3D printing metal. We'll probably stick with aluminum 775 through CNC for as long as we can, a CNC machining tool.
What's the price point of your product? Sorry if you covered it. And what sort of warranties does it come with?
So right now, we were previously thinking $1,000. That's actually $100 cheaper than our main competitor. Our recent competitor came in at, they had a $700 model and a $900 model, but realistically you have to add $100 on. So we're still kind of thinking if we do a traditional mount, it'll probably be $700. Of course, we'll probably try to add a ladder where you can upgrade it. Margins on that are, it's looking like a silencer is about $150 to $200 to manufacture. So our gross margins are about 80–70%. What was the second question to that?
Warranties?
Usually lifetime warranty. That's what our competitors are. And we need a durable product because that's what our customer expects. So ideally lifetime.
Speaking of durable product, you said that you make it out of aluminum, and I know that most silencers with any amount of sustained fire, they have issues with heat, or at least some do. Is that an issue that aluminum would suffer from, or is that a standard material for this kind of thing?
One of our competitors uses aluminum 7075, and I think they put 3,000 shot shells through it in a matter of a few hours. So it does get hot, and that's a liability on the customer touching it. But as far as the material or the product deforming, we haven't seen anything to suggest that it would do so.
Any other questions?
Do you have a model in mind for like handguns, or are you staying away from handguns?
I am staying away from handguns. There's one that is a competitor is an integrally suppressed handgun, and just like as someone that holds it, they don't necessarily want that extra length. So unless we were to put a lot of money into it, I don't see the application for a while. We do actually have a design in our back pocket that we might use for the sheriff department if they want it, but I don't plan on necessarily taking it to market or seeing it have long-term success where it's at. There's a few other designs that we have access to that are maybe like a week old. They use a new baffle structure, and they could have the application for the 9mm, but it's so early that we can't really say for sure yet if we plan on using them. But that's what I'm thinking with handguns.
Good question.
Yep.
So you were part of this program last summer, right?
Yep.
What have you achieved since then, in the last year?
So I have fundraised about $20,000 with no equity. We're on our third prototype technically. We have identified the market. We understand our customer really well, which I think is a strength compared to other hunting entrepreneurs that necessarily don't go through a traditional entrepreneur process. They kind of just like the hunting and get into it. So I think that, and there's some other just random things like the licensing. It takes a lot of licensing to do what I do, or some random goals like that. But that's about what I've done.
You definitely understand your customer well. You're just saying how good of a job you present and then answer questions. So great
Thank
work.
you.
Any other questions? If not, I will ask our traditional final question. What can we as a community do to help you?
Well, if you know any hunters, I would love to talk to them. I think that's my answer.
Excellent. Let's give Jordan a round of applause.